General Assembly has these researchers, right? And the investigators, and they went in and they checked into this hurricane relief money that the federal government made available, but somehow hasn't gotten out to the victims of Hurricane Matthew, not Florence, Hurricane Matthew from like 3 years ago. We're only talking about the CDBG funds, the disaster relief funds from CDBG. 1% has been given to the victims. Was this surprising to you, or was this kind of like expected given the reports that we've seen before this week?
Well, I think it's probably, I guess, more shocking than surprising. I mean, I think the sad part is that, when you look at our neighbors to the south in South Carolina, and they had 1,000 homes built after Matthew before we ever had one done, you could tell there's a breakdown in the system. I think that the sad part, Pete, is that there are still hurting families out there from 2 hurricanes ago, and we have to get this thing right. I really, when you have $200 million sitting out there, how much money does it cost to hire some great consultants who can walk this thing through the federal government, through FEMA and everything else to get your money and get it distributed as quickly as possible? South Carolina did it. We should be able to do it too. We should have just copied that model and pasted it in North Carolina, but we, folks tried to do it their own way, and that didn't work out so well. And my understanding is they're changing the model now. But for the people that have been hurt by the storm and they're looking for this help, it's way late.
And reading the report, it seemed like some of these changes started back in like 2009 or something. There was like this reorganization, and I guess I wonder, like, is it detrimental to keep trying to change the administrative process? Does that then create another obstacle because it's another sort of reset?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think it to some degree maybe it does. I think if you ever get it right, then I guess you could claim victory. But first of all, we have an awesome team that does the disaster recovery part of when the storm's coming through and for the weeks after. But the long-term stuff, it hasn't gone so well. And there are consultants out there that do this. This is what they do for a living. I met with them after Hurricane Matthew, and they walked me through the entire process. This is when we were changing administrations, and they knew that a new administration was coming. They said, we really need to work with you guys because here's the places we've done this. We've done this through Harvey. We've done this for South Carolina. We've done this for other places, and we know how to, walk this through. And what we did here in North Carolina when the new administration came in is they tried to do it county by county and let the counties run the process. And that didn't work. And so I think that there are people that do this. You need to let them do what they do and get things done quickly, because this is just way too long. Now, we're going to be sitting here a couple of years from now and probably be talking about Hurricane Florence and the recovery for Hurricane Florence. And it does take a long time, and it's very complex work. But, again, South Carolina had 1,000 homes built before we had one. And I don't know how you make excuses for that, because that's just not good. It's not excusable.
Yeah. And it's one of the things that governors, it can make or break a governor, the response to a disaster. And there are a few times, I'm kind of cynical. I don't know. We've been talking for a while. I don't know if it's come through. I am kind of cynical on a lot of this stuff. But
yeah,
it does. Okay. So, and I recognize, though, that for a governor, the ability to stand at a podium and tell people, the information that's important, yes, during the disaster, but how you lead after and how you recover, how you lead the recovery effort, that never gets the same kind of attention, it seems like. And I think a lot of people think if they just roll their sleeves up and stand in front of the camera in a polo shirt, then that's enough, and it's not. And that's, I think, what we're learning with this report and with this response.
Yeah. It's easy to put your disaster casual wear on and go down during the storm. That's the easy stuff. It's and not even the 3 months later, but the 6 months, year and a half later, when you better have a team that's really firing on all cylinders. And listen, that's easier said than done. Mm-hmm. I get that. I'm definitely not throwing the governor under the bus or anybody else. He hasn't gotten this right yet, but hopefully he will, for the sake of the people out there that are needing this work to be done. But yeah, this is a project. I come from an architecture background, and you have to have a good project manager on your project that's coming in weekly and giving you project updates. Where do we stand? And if things aren't going the right way, then you need to make sure that you're making the adjustments you need to make so that you can keep your project on track. But it's a time and money and people resources equation is what it comes down to, and you have to manage all those things really well.
Is it time for, I know there's the Office of Response and Resiliency or something like that. Should there be a more permanent footprint in state government to manage this kind of relief effort?
Well, I mean, we certainly have the folks that do our emergency management work. We've always had that entity. I think they should do it. They've been doing it for years, and I think you said it. It kind of sounds good to say, oh, we're going to put this new government agency in place or entity in place to take this and do it. Well, I don't know if you need that. I think you just need to make sure you have the right people doing the right jobs at the right times. And there's a million things going on in government. I get it. All these agencies and departments have a million other things going on. It's easy to kind of maybe out of sight, out of mind on some of these things like hurricanes, but those people are hurting down there. There's still a lot of people that are out of their homes and hurting and looking for relief. And so we're kind of in the people business. I mean, that's really what government's about. We should be in the customer service business, and the citizens of our state are our customers, and we should be in the business to serve them. That's why we're here.
It is amazing. You think about almost 3 years. Where are people living in for 3 years? I mean, why would you even still have a house?
Yeah, exactly. And, you have to, in a lot of these cases, people have to, obviously you have to redraw the floodplains, and you have to get people out of there and say you're not going to be able to rebuild in this location. You have to find a new location to build homes and all these kinds of things. But we have hurricanes, Pete. We have them sometimes every year for multiple years in a row. Hope we don't have one this year.
Yeah.
But if we do, I hope we're far better prepared for this part of the process. I mean, every year we have a new storm. We get much better at the response part. How are we responding during and immediately after the storm? We are one of the best states in the country for that. But the long-term recovery process, we're not. And we have time to prepare, right? So not only are we doing this recovery right now, taking care of storms from 3 years ago and then Hurricane Florence, and not only are we doing that, but we should be preparing for future storms and making sure we're hiring the right people to make sure that we have a plan in place for that too, that we're improving it, we're doing better. So I hope we get this thing figured out, B. This is it's kind of sad.